All right. Welcome back into the show. And let's keep going. We're going to go with NFL here. So, just going 10 minutes with this one. So, this one I didn't watch as closely as I watched college football. I talked about earlier with me going to the Purdue game and all that stuff. So I wasn't as focused on the Sunday games, but I did kind of get into the mix a little bit. Let's start with Thursday night, Bills Dolphins here, and this was just catastrophic for the Dolphins. You had Tua go down again with another concussion, and everybody's question is like he should retire from football. Like he should retire. Everything I'm hearing about the situation is he's probably going to end up coming back, which is kind of crazy that he's even allowed to come back. But the thing is it's his choice. It's his choice, and he's a football player. He's a gamer. So, it's just tough for Dolphins fans. It really is because they really think that Tua is a guy. They're all in on the Tua factor, and they had a solid chance this year. But they've always struggled to protect Tua, and it's not helpful. He didn't have a great game in this scenario. He had already thrown a couple picks here, and the Bills were kind of in their head. I think like looking at it game wise, the Bills look great. They were really able to get this running attack going, which is flat out huge. It's kind of what the NFL has turned into. It's turned into a running league where you should be game managing and doing things that way. Passing should be a second kind of option. And Josh Allen only throwing the ball 19 times is exactly what you want. Aaron and I talked about a lot about it in the preview. Like, this is how it's supposed to be. So, the Bills here, they're looking pretty good. And I think they're clear favorites in the AFC East right now. I'll talk about the Jets a little bit later, but I think the Bills have really shown it offensively and defensively that they're legit and they're coming back ready to keep it going. So looking at some of the 1 o'clock games, let's start with Raiders-Ravens. This was a really rough loss for the Ravens here. The Raiders made a really good comeback, and Gardner Minshew was 30 of 38. 276 passing yards, a touchdown, and an interception. They weren't really able to get the run game going, but they got Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers going. And these two just are absolute studs, and Gardner Minshew is making them look like absolute studs. It was tough for the Ravens here. Lamar really couldn't get going, only 247, a touchdown, interception. It just wasn't a great game for him. He got Flowers going a little bit, but they struggled to get the run game going. Derrick Henry was only okay, 84 yards rushing, just a little under 5 yards a carry, which isn't terrible. But they weren't really able to get the run game going because it was always close, So they weren't able to keep that going, and the time of possession just was not on their side. The Raiders had the ball way more than the Ravens, and I'm telling you, like, time of possession, it really matters, especially from the Ravens' perspective. They were one of the best teams in football because they always had one of the best time of possessions. It's just how you win games, and this defense is worse than it was. Marlon Humphrey did have an interception, and they still got guys on the defense, but they lost a lot. And that had me concerned a little bit going into the season. And them starting 0-2, I was shocked that they lost to the Raiders. Like, it doesn't shock me that Lamar's not looking as good. Their defense isn't looking as good. So some of it's shocking, and some of it you tend to expect from the Ravens there. I think they're going to be able to turn it around, but overall it's just a little frustrating if you're a Ravens fan per se. Looking at some of the other 1 o'clock, Jets, Titans. The Jets kind of got going a little bit. Their offense is still struggling a little bit. They were able to use a 2 running back attack with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen, 7 carries, 33 yards, a touchdown, had a receiving touchdown. Also, Breece Hall was awesome, 14 carries, 62 yards. He had a receiving touchdown as well. And, Rodgers being that game manager, letting the run game kind of take its toll. It's really what the quarterback position, it's their job now. Rodgers 18 for 30, 176, 2 touchdowns, and didn't turn over the ball. It's all that matters here. And the Titans were able to drive down and make it a solid game, but then they had a drop on 4th down in the red zone. Will Levis, I thought he played better than last week, talking about that Chicago game, but I'm still not the biggest Will Levis guy. They have some weapons, and overall, it just didn't look that great, from the Titans' perspective. Okay, looking at some other games, Chargers dominated the Panthers. The storyline for the Panthers here is Bryce Young is getting benched. He's not going to be starting the next game. I was a big Bryce Young guy, okay? I talked about it a lot on the podcast. I absolutely love Bryce Young. This was the worst situation you could possibly put a guy like this into because, we knew it would take some time. The question with him was he was small, and that's very difficult to navigate in the pocket. To be honest, he doesn't look good at all. He really doesn't. But there's not much help for him. A lot of people are saying, oh, he's got receivers now. This should be a lot better. That's not how it works. You need an O line, We've seen plenty of quarterbacks like have a ton of weapons like Justin Herbert or people like that. And it doesn't turn into wins because, yeah, you have the weapons, but you need an O-line in order to sustain that, and with the Panthers, they just don't have anything here. They absolutely got dominated by the Chargers. The Chargers didn't look great. Like, Justin Herbert did not play a good game. It really wasn't great. Herbert was injured. He had 2 interceptions. He didn't look good, but it didn't matter because the Panthers' defense looks awful. Their offense looks terrible, and I think this is the worst situation that a starting quarterback that was number 1 overall has ever been put into, and they traded all that to get Bryce Young, and he's clearly not the guy, and Dave Canales making this decision. I feel like he's just trying to be a young coach and make a bold decision. There's no point to this, man. Like, you got to develop Bryce Young here. He's your franchise. He's your story. You're just ruining his confidence here by benching him. So overall, I really don't see much sense in the Bryce Young benching, but the Panthers are kind of a lost cause again this year, which is tough to say because you're hoping they get better, but it doesn't look like that they will. Looking at some of the other 1 o'clocks, another shocking one. Saints dominated the Cowboys 44-19, and the Saints look like one of the best teams in football. And it's really weird to say that. It really is, but their offense has been dominant. They haven't had a drive yet where they haven't ended in points, which is just flat out insane. Derek Carr has the best passer rating of football, and it's absolutely dominating. Yeah, the Saints look awesome. They look flat out awesome. The Cowboys really struggled in this game to move the ball. Their defense was struggling. Kamara was running all over the place with 4 touchdowns in this game. Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy to see the Saints just dominate this way. I did not expect this. This is the most shocking team. You get a shocking team every once in a while. I'm not completely bought into the hype yet, but the Saints are a lot better than I expected and overall are looking very, very solid. Buccaneers, Lions. The Lions looked really, really bad. This was one of Ben Johnson's worst coaching games, like play calling wise. It was really, really bad. And I mean, as a Lions fan, you're just like, what's going on here? They're throwing Jared Goff over 50 times when we're supposed to be a running team. It just didn't really make much sense. Goff was 34 of 55, and they were still able to get a lot of carries. I mean, a solid amount of carries for Gibbs and David Montgomery, but you expect them to use them more. Amon-Ra dealing with some injuries, which is killer for the Lions. They're using Jameson Williams a decent amount. This was a game we should have won. It really was. And the Buccaneers, while they looked pretty good and Baker had a couple great moments in this game, like, they're not the greatest team in the world. They just aren't. Chris Godwin absolutely dominated our cornerbacks, and the Lions cornerbacks don't look the greatest in the world. Does that make me question if the Lions can win the Super Bowl? Not really, because I mean, it's the second game of the season. You're playing a Buccaneers team that people think are looking pretty good. They're 2-0, with the NFC South. Like, there's a lot of questions. And I feel like you're seeing it with some of these good teams. They're starting out really struggling. The Ravens starting out struggling. The Lions now 1-1. This happens. This happens on occasion. So I'm not too worried about the Lions. It was a little eye-opening, though, to see some of the coaching mistakes and some of the, defensive problems that still might be in effect with the cornerbacks. Okay, looking at the 4 o'clock games. Let's go Cardinals-Rams. The Cardinals look awesome. Marvin Harrison Jr. had his coming out party as probably is going to end up being one of the best receivers in football, but he was flat out sensational throughout this whole game and flat out dominated. The Cardinals look really, really good. Kyler Murray is moving the ball down the field. And I mean, if you guys didn't think the Cardinals would get better this year, you're completely wrong. They almost beat a pretty good Bills team that is looking like. The Bills dominated the Dolphins. They're looking good. and now they just dominated the Rams. So I'm really impressed with what I've seen from the Cardinals so far. And then Chiefs Bengals, which this one was awesome. The Chiefs ended up winning 26-25. You can talk about a pass interference that could or could not have had. It is what it is, man. You know, the Chiefs are still ended up winning this game. Mahomes didn't look the greatest. 151, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It really was not his game. But the fact that they were able to go right down the field and end up winning the game, that says something about Patrick Mahomes. You know, like it seems like everything's against the Chiefs, but he's able to do it. Burrow, to me, looked a lot better. He was able to get the ball off a little quicker and was making better reads. I struggled to get the run game going, but overall, man, I mean, I was pretty impressed with what I saw from Burrow. With the Bengals, I'm not too concerned. They probably should have won this game. You know, you can argue about that call all you want, but overall, like, I think these are 2 really, really good teams and are going to be in it near the end. And then the last 2 games, we got Texans Bears. The Texans were able to win this one. Caleb Williams, again, it was the thing, like no O-line, you know, and he had to throw 2 tough balls that just couldn't get there because he didn't have an O-line. And that's going to be the story with this team. You know, he's got weapons, but he doesn't really have a great O-line, and that's kind of what hurts my opinion on thinking the Bears will be good. And that's part of the reason I was lower on them. Their defense is legit, though, because they really slowed down Stroud. Stroud was okay in this game. He wasn't anything crazy, but the Texans were able to win this one 19-13. Last game, Falcons-Eagles. The Falcons really did a great job running the football. You know, they were using Bijan, they were using Algier, did a great job with that, and Kirk Cousins was the man. He didn't turn the ball over. And again, this is the common theme with quarterbacks that we're seeing from this year. If you can be a great game manager and step up when you're needed to, then you have so much value in this league. And guess what? That's exactly what Kirk Cousins did in this scenario, led them down when they needed it, and Drake London had that touchdown with 20 seconds left. You know, is just flat out huge. I think he was like 250 yards, 2 pass touchdowns. He was good in this game. And, you know, I think the Falcons and the Eagles are both pretty legit, and both could be playoff teams moving forward.